What would you do if the person you love was suddenly in danger, and you were powerless to stop it? Quang finds himself trapped in excruciating pain, clutching his injured leg. As he uncovers a terrifying truth, Linda's ex-husband has returned, determined to force her back into his life. Helpless yet determined, Quang calls his mother, desperate for guidance and support, and makes a vow he cannot break: he will protect Linda no matter what. Join us as the tension unfolds, every second more heart-stopping than the last. Hit that subscribe button and don't miss a moment of this gripping story. Quang pressed his trembling hands against his injured leg, the throbbing pain radiating up through his body like fire burning in his veins. The room around him was cloaked in shadows, the only light coming from a dim bulb flickering weakly in the corner, as if it, too, was struggling to survive. His breaths came unevenly, short gasps breaking into sobs, and sweat trickled down his face, mixing with the hot tears that refused to stop falling. Every movement sent a violent jolt through his body, and he clenched his teeth until his jaw ached, yet no strength seemed enough to contain the agony that tore through him. He had never felt so fragile, so utterly consumed by pain and fear. The small device in his hand, the phone, became the only lifeline he could think of. The thin thread that still tied him to the world outside this suffocating room. His fingers shook uncontrollably, sliding across the screen as he tried to find the familiar number. For a moment, he thought he might drop it. The weakness in his grip was unbearable, and the pressure of panic only made him clumsier. "Come on. Come on," he whispered under his breath, his voice ragged, barely audible, as though speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile courage he had left. Finally, the digits lined up on the screen, and with the press of a button, the ringing began. The sound seemed endless. Each tone echoed like a cruel reminder of how alone he was, trapped in that moment with nothing but pain and the haunting silence between rings. His lips trembled as he pressed the phone closer to his ear, desperate to hear the voice that had always been a sanctuary to him. He was crying openly now, the sobs shaking his chest, tears staining the cracked floor beneath him. It wasn't just the pain in his leg, it was the weight of everything he had overheard, the nightmare that had forced itself into his fragile reality. Yet in that instant, all he could think of was his mother. The thought of her calm, steady voice was the only thing keeping him from collapsing entirely. His mind flickered back to fleeting memories, his mother's hands wiping away his tears when he was small, her voice telling him that no matter what happened, he would never be alone. But tonight, that promise felt so distant, so fragile, almost like a lie he desperately wanted to believe in again. The phone's ringing continued, and with each second, Quang's fear deepened. What if she didn't answer? What if he was left to face this night alone, with the shadows pressing in and the cruel reality clawing at him? His breathing quickened, panic threatening to overwhelm him. He pressed his forehead against his knee, groaning through clenched teeth, rocking himself back and forth as if to soothe the storm tearing through his body. When the sound of a voice finally broke through the line, Quang's breath hitched. Relief and desperation collided inside him, spilling out in a choked sob. He tried to speak, but his words came out broken, tangled in pain and fear. Still, in that fragile moment, with the phone hot against his ear and his tears refusing to stop, he knew one thing with absolute certainty: he couldn't bear the weight of this night alone. "Mom." Quang's voice cracked as soon as he heard her on the other end. It was as if the sound of her presence, warm, steady, familiar, opened the floodgates of everything he had been holding inside. The sobs spilled out before he could stop them, sharp and raw, each one tearing through his chest like shards of glass. "It hurts. My leg, I can't," his breath hitched, words collapsing into a muffled cry. He pressed the phone harder against his ear, clinging to her voice as though it was the last fragile rope keeping him from plunging into the abyss. On the other end, his mother froze. Her heart clenched as she listened to the pain in her son's voice. She had known Quang as a boy of resilience. The kind of child who rarely complained, who endured hardships in silence. To hear him cry like this, to hear the fear woven through his every syllable, was unbearable. "Quang, listen to me," she said, her tone firm but trembling at the edges. "Breathe. You need to calm down. Tell me where you are. I'll come to you." But the tremor in her words betrayed her own growing panic, the storm of worry raging silently in her chest. Quang shook his head even though she couldn't see him. His eyes darted to the door, to the corners of the room, as though the shadows themselves were listening. "It's not just the pain, Mom," he whispered, his voice low and broken, like a secret that poisoned his tongue. His free hand clenched into a fist, his nails digging into his palm. "I heard something. Something terrible." He paused, trying to gather the courage to speak it aloud, but the very thought made his stomach twist, his mother's breath caught. "What is it, Quang? Tell me." The silence that followed was suffocating. His mother gripped the phone with white knuckles, her mind reeling. For years, she had seen the way Linda's past haunted her son's life, the shadows that seemed to follow the woman he loved, the scars she carried silently but heavily. But this was different. This was not just a memory resurfacing. This was a threat. A presence. A monster come to reclaim what he believed was his, Quang. Her voice faltered, softer now, as though afraid to shatter him further. "Are you sure? Did you really hear that?" "I heard it, Mom," Quang insisted, tears streaming unchecked down his cheeks. His leg pulsed with pain, but it was nothing compared to the weight pressing on his chest. "I heard them talking. He's close. He's going to find her. And his voice broke again, a sob choking him mid-sentence. "I can't stop him. I can't even stand. What if he takes her away? What if I lose her?" His mother swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay strong even as her own fear threatened to undo her. "Listen to me, Quang," she said, her tone sharper now, each word deliberate. "You're not alone. Do you understand? You are not alone in this. We'll find a way to protect her. But right now, I need you to stay with me. Stay strong. Tell me exactly what you heard, every detail." Quang pressed his forehead against the cold wall, his tears soaking into the phone pressed against his skin. His body trembled with helplessness, but his mother's words anchored him just enough to keep speaking. He told her everything, the voices he had overheard, the threats laced in the man's tone, the certainty that Linda's fragile freedom was about to be torn away. And as he spoke, he felt the weight of his fear filling the small room, thick and suffocating. The agony in his leg, the shadows lurking outside, and the looming specter of Linda's past all pressed down on him at once. For the first time in years, Quang realized just how powerless he was. And yet, clinging to his mother's voice, he refused to let the despair swallow him completely. Quang's chest heaved with ragged breaths, each inhale sharp with pain, each exhale trembling with fear. He pressed the phone to his ear, clinging to his mother's steady voice like a lifeline, yet his mind raced uncontrollably. Images of Linda, helpless and unaware, filled his vision, twisted by the cruel possibility that the man from her past could tear her from the life she had painstakingly rebuilt. The thought was unbearable. His hands trembled violently, clutching his injured leg, the searing pain almost secondary to the terror that gripped his heart. He wanted to move, to leap across streets and rooftops, to find her himself, but his body betrayed him. Every attempt to shift sent jagged bolts of agony shooting through his knee and thigh. And for the first time, Quang felt the raw, humbling weight of helplessness. I can't just wait, Mom, he whispered, voice cracking like dry wood. I can't do nothing while he takes her away. Each word trembled, wrapped in fear, anger, and love too fierce to contain. He felt tears stream freely down his cheeks, mixing with sweat and the blood from a scraped palm, but he refused to let them blur his focus. He knew that fear alone was not an option, it could paralyze him, and Linda had no one else to fight for her if he surrendered to despair. His mind raced through possibilities, how to reach her, how to warn her, how to stop the man who claimed her as his own. But every scenario collided with his current state. His body useless, his legs weak, his arms trembling. The room around him seemed to shrink, the shadows pressing closer, whispering doubts he could not silence. But then came a spark, an ember of resolve. He gritted his teeth, forcing his legs to bear weight even as pain tore through them. He would not allow Linda to be taken without a fight, not if he could breathe, not if he could think, not if his heart still beat in defiance. Every muscle screamed in protest, yet determination surged through him, relentless and raw. I won't let him take you, he murmured to the empty room, a vow spoken into the darkness, a promise to the girl whose happiness had become his very purpose. He imagined Linda's face, her eyes wide with confusion. Perhaps fear, her lips trembling as she struggled to remain calm. The thought of her vulnerability ignited a fire that roared through his veins, a fierce, desperate courage that seemed to push aside the pain and the shadows. He pictured himself bursting into that nightmare, dragging her away, shielding her with every ounce of strength he could summon. Even broken, even battered, even terrified, he refused to let the man from her past dictate her future. Not now. Not ever. Clutching the phone, Quang began to speak rapidly to his mother, giving every detail he could remember, every piece of overheard conversation, every hint that might help them anticipate the man's next move. Each word was laced with urgency, a frantic rhythm against the silence of the night. His mother's reassurances echoed through the line, steady and strong, a voice of strategy, of hope, of love. Yet the reality of the threat loomed large, and every second felt like a knife twisting in his chest. Pain, fear, and love collided in a storm inside him, a tempest that left no room for weakness. Quang's tears blurred his vision, but they also sharpened his resolve. He would endure the pain, confront the fear, and fight. He had no choice. The idea of losing Linda, of letting someone force her into a life she did not choose, was unthinkable. I'll find you, Linda, he whispered fiercely into the phone, not only to his mother but to the world, to the darkness surrounding him, to the danger that threatened the woman he loved. I swear. I'll protect you. No matter what it takes. Even as the shadows of helplessness threatened to consume him, Quang sat upright, determined. He would rise. He would move. And he would fight with everything he had left.